All right, today we're here with Jack. Is it Harle?
Really?
Harley?
Yep.
The man behind the Vessel Bike Project. Jack actually reached out to me over Instagram, seeing if I was interested in getting on one of the frames, which definitely am. But I wanted to learn more about it and thought there's probably a number of people out there that would benefit from the information as well. So just wanted to have a chat with you and learn more about your bike.
Yeah. Yeah, I reached out. Well, I mean, I have an extra frame laying around right now, so it's not going to any under any use at the moment. So that I feel bad about that. I was like, I want someone to be riding it. But
Yeah.
yeah, you've always been talking about like how you like the geometry you prefer, and I thought I could maybe cater to that and something that you probably couldn't get out there on the market, as well as be able to test some kinematics. I would assume you would be interested in being able to have a little bit more adjustability when it comes
Yeah.
to kinematics.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of options out there that
Yeah.
let you play with that. And yeah, it's something I don't honestly have, I think, a really good feel for. So
Hmm.
it'd be a cool learning experience and definitely want to pick your brain on that um, at some point. But um, yeah, I guess maybe backing up a bit, just to kind of get the story on the whole thing. Maybe briefly, like what's your background, and then how did that lead into the idea to build your own bike?
Yeah. So I've been biking since like late 2017. I was graduating high school, and I used to race a bunch of RC cars, and there wasn't an RC car track like up near my school. So I went to Cal Poly Slow.
Yeah.
Uh, so I bought an Intense Spider 29 from like the RC track owner, and then I brought that up to school. And like I had never really ridden a bike. I did one North Star day like when I was, I think I was 16, and it was like one of the most fun days I've ever had on a bike. Like I have a bit of a moto background, but
Okay.
I was stoked at North Star, which is kind of what prompted me to like save up the money to buy a bike.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I started in 2017 at Cal Poly Slow, like riding mountain bikes. There's quite a bit of riding out there. Oh, actually, I think part of the reason like I wanted to buy one was because of the Trail Peak guy. I saw you
Oh, nice.
interviewed him the other day, but yeah, I'm pretty sure his videos got me into mountain biking. Like I
Oh,
was
that's
just watching
awesome.
all his stuff,
Yeah.
and that was what gave me the idea. Yeah, so I joined like the cycling team up there. I was riding like I climbed like 9 or 10,000 feet a week, and just
Heavy,
because,
dude. Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't on Strava, so I just looked at like the difference in elevation between like where I was going and like where I ended up, and I thought it was going to be like 2,000 feet, but then I looked on Strava and it was like a little over 3,000 feet every ride. Um, so I progressed like pretty quickly just because I was riding so much,
Yeah.
and I have a bit of a moto background, like so I know how to at least ride a bicycle before that. Um, yeah, and then I was on the Cal Poly cycling team for a few years, like doing the collegiate races and stuff, and then doing some other races on the side, just like Sea Otter and then some of the Vale Lakes and Fontana downhills down here in SoCal. Um, yeah, and then I think there was always something that I wanted, like from bikes that I just couldn't get. Like it was like kind of when high pivots were just starting to become popular again, and like I couldn't really afford like a newer high pivot, as well as I didn't exactly like want exactly what they made.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what at least sparked the idea to like start catting it up and figuring out how to build it. Uh, and then I had also been through like a series of bikes, like I was breaking a few. I broke, yeah, I got like four different frame breakages, like not anything catastrophic, but to the point where they got warranted. And then the last one I knew the warranty process was also going to be like 4 months, which sucked because it was like peak COVID.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was kind of like I had already started building my bike at that point, but that was like when I committed to like fully. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be the bike I'm gonna ride. So then I had to, I think I had a month before Sea Otter that year. It might have been the first Sea Otter back. I'm not really sure. From COVID, and I was like, I guess I'm gonna try to get it ready for Sea Otter, and then showed up to Sea Otter with like a half built. I mean, it was 90% built, but I came without a drivetrain and some other parts, trying to see if I could find some support for the project.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
yeah,
And were you going to school for engineering, or do you have any background in that?
yeah. So my
Or
background is in bioresource and agriculture engineering, and then I got my master's in water engineering. But the ag engineering is definitely more relevant, just because it's more. It's, I guess you could describe it as, it's super broad, but like tractor engineering is
Mhm.
would be like a side of it. So yeah, my senior project, I made like an automated lettuce harvester. So I make like, I at least had experience designing some stuff. So
Nice, nice. Um, and yeah, the first bikes you made look like they definitely stood out.
yeah.
So did you have to learn welding to like make that happen? And yeah, what was the thought process to like have it end up the way it did with, because like that down tube design, it definitely stood out. They looked pretty badass.
Yeah, so yes, I didn't know how to weld before. So like all the welds on there were my first welds basically. I think I practiced for like an hour, maybe
That's
an hour or
awesome.
two before I started on the chainstay. It's I still have the chainstay. It's pretty disgusting. Uh because I also made it, I didn't make it easy on myself. I used like some of the thinnest wall tubing around, and then I also was trying to weld to like super thick metal, and it didn't work out great. Like it held up, like it didn't break.
Well,
But
that's pretty impressive. Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of how I learned how to weld, and then I've had quite a bit of practice since.
Nice.
But then for that first design, I actually have it built in the garage, but the whole concept behind the raised like down tube, top tube thing, I was planning on building a linkage fork out of it,
Oh,
like
no
kind of like
way.
the structure cycle works one.
Damn,
Uh,
swinging for the fences.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so I have the linkage fork built in my garage. Like
Oh, no way,
I've ridden
dude.
it quite a bit. I just haven't posted anything about it. I'm trying to get it a little more dialed in first.
Dude, that's wild. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like more the structure cycle works like style where it's built into the frame rather than like just
Yeah. So
areas. And
so that was essentially to have clearance
yeah,
for what the linkage fork. Okay.
that was kind of the
S-
plan.
Starting to make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made normally.
Yeah,
So
definitely stood out. I mean, probably helped
yeah,
get some eyes on the project.
yeah,
And I guess what were like, did you have like a set of design principles or like concepts you were looking to test out with that first bike?
yeah. So one of the things I wanted to test was I wanted to make like all the kinematics super independent of each other, so I could like just change one variable and like kind of feel what it actually did on the trail without changing a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
Like the Santa Cruz like progression, or maybe it's a high-low chip. They have talked about how it also like changes like the leverage ratio, and then it changes like the anti-rise and the pedal kickback, and like just basically it changes the entire bike, and you can't just be like, oh, my bottom bracket's higher.
Yeah.
uh, so that was one of the things I wanted to test. So like I can change all, well, at least on my first bike I could change all the links pretty quickly, as well as I had a few different mounting holes for my like floating brake arm. uh, and then also my idler is on like an eccentric plate that you can change the location of the idler to change the anti squat as much. Like it's not like crazy, but you can get a pretty good feel about like the difference in anti-squat and how that affects like the pedaling.
Nice.
That was one of the goals in the beginning.
Yeah. And were you able to, I guess, isolate all those and kind of get a picture in your head of like how that affects the bike on the trail?
Yeah, yeah. I've had a few different generations of the bike now, so I've been able to kind of work out what I believe is a pretty good range of
Hmm.
what I like to be in. Specifically, like anti-rise, I don't need the super highs and the super lows anymore, so I kind of constrained myself a little bit just because I don't need a bike that squats a ton on the brakes. Like I just never need it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that. I know you've ridden the Dreadnought a bit, but I think the anti-rise is too high generally on that bike. Uh, but I've played with like different leverage ratio curves as well as like how much progression, and I've learned quite a bit.
Nice. And I guess where maybe, yeah, I'm thinking of maybe like a good way to talk about this so people have like a reference point.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, is there something that you on the market right now that is similar?
yeah. I don't think I'm like on the fringe of any of my kinematics. Like
Yeah.
I've a leverage ratio with like 25% progression, but it's at least, I mean, it's more progressive in the beginning than the end, as
Yeah,
compared to the Dreadnought kind of isn't is pretty linear and then gets progressive near the end, if you know what I'm saying.
I think so.
Um, my original layout was closer to where it was more linear in the beginning and then progressive at the end. And I personally, it worked significantly worse than my current version.
Yeah,
uh,
that's cool that you've moved in the right direction. And
yeah.
I guess what linkage system are you working with on
So
the
I'm
current
working
generation of the
on
bike?
a linkage driven single pivot with a floating brake. It looks complicated. Like everyone's like, oh, thinks it's pretty complicated, but like it's not that crazy. Um, I think it's a unique layout that I have it in right now, just how it's laid out. But otherwise, it's not anything too wild. I kind of like to think of it as like a deconstructed six bar, though, just
Okay.
because it is. If you add up all the links, it's pretty close to a six bar, but it's not. Like, not everything is interconnected, like I was saying, where I can
Hmm.
change every kinematic pretty independently just to get it dialed in for what I'm looking for. Like, even if it's on the day or in just for general riding.
Nice. Um, and is the floating brake something that you were kind of decided on going into the project? Because that's something that hasn't made it into the modern mountain bike world, hardly at all. So it's kind of interesting to see that on your bike.
Yeah. So yes, I was decided on it like pretty early in going into it. Part of it was because that linkage fork I was talking about, you can build an anti-dive into it, so you don't need as much anti-rise, um, which was part of the reason I did it. But then also, I did want to test like how anti-rise affects like the riding characteristic. If I didn't have a floating brake, I wouldn't have been able to do that on a single pivot.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was one of the main reasons I chose to go with the floating brake.
Yeah. And maybe a little side tangent here.
Yeah.
Um, I've seen the floating brake uh, add-on for the Common Solve Supreme.
Oh yeah,
That's you, right?
yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So what's that little side project? Yeah, like or how'd that come to be?
Yeah, so I ride with a guy named Joe a lot. We do a bit of data testing. He's a bit of a like data acquisition nerd, uh, and he loves to test his bike and kind of figure out like how to set it up the best. and then he was asking like if he could would be able to change the anti-rise on his bike. And originally we had a floating brake arm that connected to the frame, but then I placed a link on that bike instead, and the result was pretty clean. I was stoked with how it turned out, but it might be the world's first 8-bar bike.
Ooh.
Not sure, but yeah, it was a pretty interesting project. So he has a few different downhill bikes. He has the Common Sol V5 currently. He had a Trek Session, the high pivot, like the newer version, and then he recently got a steel front triangle made to like change like the flex characteristics of that bike. Uh, but then
Damn.
he also has an Atherton coming, so he's a bit of a tester on the side.
Going deep. Are you guys doing
Yeah,
like suspension data acquisition?
yeah, we're doing. Yeah, he has like two different systems, so when he has the spare available, I tend to use it. Or I recently my buddy Owen has been using it, so
Sweet. And you ran that on your bike as well to kind of
yeah, I've ran that on my bike
nice.
a bit.
And
Yeah.
what has that taught you, or what were you able to gain from that sort of testing?
Um, it's been pretty useful, like getting your bike dialed in, like balance wise, is it helps a ton,
Yeah.
especially if I think I have a decent feel for like how to get a bike down balanced, but some people are way off on like the actual balance of their bike, where their rear might be like super sagged in, or their fork's way too soft, or their rebound's like way off. Like, but for me, at least initially, I realized like my shock tune was way off. I had a shock where like the rebound was way too fast and the compression was way too soft, and it just like I just wrote it like fully closed rebound and fully open or sorry, fully closed rebound and fully closed compression. And then I had to get it retuned, which was useful. It wasn't like I was just like, oh, I'm on the fringe, like what's going on. I could look at the numbers and be like, yeah, the shock is just off. Uh, and then since then, like looking at just rebound speeds, I'm still trying to get it figured out. Like both of us are. We don't know exact numbers on, or you shouldn't really look at exact numbers when looking at the data, but we're still trying to figure out our thought process on how to set up a bike properly, whether it be like ratios between compression and rebound speeds, or like looking at different parts of the travel and like shaft or I guess axle velocities, like depending on where you are in the travel, as well as yeah, just trying to get that the balance between rebound and compression right, and like actually what axle speed should you be going for. There isn't a ton of like info out on the internet about that, so it's been a bit of just testing to figure out where we like it, as well as yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it would take a lot of reps just to get like an
yeah,
idea of what the numbers even represent on the
yeah.
bike. So
It's really easy to get the bike from 0 to 90% really quickly using the data acquisition. Like, yeah, like I was saying, your balance, like your general rebound, your general compression, your sag, your dynamic sag, all that stuff. It's super easy to get it like get your bike 90% set up, but getting it like the last 10% is kind of what we're trying to still figure out using data. Like our bikes feel dialed, like they're really good,
yeah, they're close.
except
Yeah.
we think there's probably more. Make our bikes look like Loic Bruni's bike, the
Yeah,
hovercraft mode.
totally.
Uh, but I don't think even, oh, yeah, I don't think everyone has it figured out.
I mean, it's a moving target always.
Yeah.
So I guess that's part of the fun. Um, and yeah, so did you play with geometry very much, or did you kind of have an idea of what it was going in and it worked out?
Um, it's changed a little bit since I've started. Um, I've been trying to figure out one thing I'm not certain on is BB height. Like
Yeah.
I've tried higher BBs and I've tried lower bottom brackets, and I'm not convinced on either of them yet. So I'm still trying to figure out what either one does better. Obviously, they're better in different circumstances, at least for my testing. But yeah, I've had one bike. I could change a link into the bottom bracket at the time. It also made the bike super slack. So I think I
Yeah.
was running like a pretty low bottom bracket with like a 58-degree head tube angle, which is interesting.
Yeah. I ran my geometron, I think, in a pretty similar zone, but
Okay.
on
Yeah.
accident for a little bit.
Yeah. Was it like the mullet setting or something or
Yeah, I put the longer chainstay on,
okay.
and I mean, looking back, yeah, it obviously would slacken and lower the BB, but I just didn't accommodate that with a bigger seat stay spacer. So
Okay.
it was ridiculously low, like in that
What do you
zone,
think
and
of it?
it was really challenging to ride,
Yeah.
especially I think I was like at Mount Seymour, or whatever. It was pretty
Oh yeah.
awkward trails, pretty rocky, so lots of pedals on the ground and
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
hard to turn.
they have like the weird slick rock garden stuff that's just
Yeah,
chattering. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What'd you think
Yeah.
of your bike in ultra slack mode?
I, I did it mostly on like downhill shuttles, so it wasn't awful, but when like it wasn't unrideable, but it was
Yeah,
definitely difficult to get through some of the tighter stuff. I felt like pretty off the back and the front wheel was super far away. Like I was almost like jackknifing in the corners. Do you know that feeling?
yeah,
Yeah. So that's kind of what it felt like to me when I was a little on the slack side.
yeah. And with BB height, I feel like I'm kind of in a similar spot where like, yeah, it's not clear which one's better, but
Yeah.
if you had to articulate like what the pros and cons are from and like what extremes have you tested on that, and yeah, what's kind of your feeling on either end of the spectrum?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't gotten like crazy extreme. I think like the high is like an 8 mil BB drop off a 29er.
Hmm.
And then I think the low is probably about 35,
Yeah,
which is a decent range, but it's not outside the norms.
yeah, totally.
And then it was interesting. I tried it at Whistler with like the bottom bracket higher, and like going into berms just felt like you almost could like tip the bike in easier. I don't know if you know what feeling I'm talking about, but and then
Yeah,
the lower bottom bracket, it was like more difficult to initiate it into a berm, but I think the low bottom bracket shines when it's steeper, just like it kind of increases your stack height,
yeah,
um, as well as I don't know, it's more stable almost, but the higher bottom bracket like brings your feet up so you feel more over the front. Those are kind of my feelings, and then trying to find a balance in between that. And I think it depends a lot on the trail. Like what I was saying, I ride some pretty not flat, but not steep stuff, and then I also go ride some really steep stuff with like big compressions and like pretty gnarly downhill like shovel trails around here. So trying to make a bike that works for both is a little interesting or like ideal for both is what I'm saying. Like they work
yeah,
great in both, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish it was like slightly different for this certain specific trail.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I think I can relate to the high low bottom bracket feeling because
Yeah.
there is something I've liked about high bottom bracket bikes in the way they corner, which I feel like
Hmm.
is a little counterintuitive to what people normally think.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. Low bottom brackets are also cool. So, um, yeah, are you like always messing with stuff, or like
Uh, yeah. I mean,
I mean, you kind of makes sense
yes,
with what you
but
got going on, but
I'm usually trying something,
yeah,
whether it be like changing like G or kinematics, but it can be just making sure everything's working properly. Like, oh, I want to try a lighter hardware in my bike, and then I'm testing that for the day, like making sure nothing's coming loose or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Um, I guess right now, like what are you chasing or putting energy into on the project?
right now, not so. I've been injured for like I haven't really ridden a bike. Well, I've been starting to get back into running for like the last 2 weeks or so, but I haven't really ridden a bike before that for like 4 months. I broke
Oh
my
wow.
elbow,
Oh shoot.
like tore some stuff in my elbow, so I'm like on the recovery right now. So right now, I'm not really chasing anything kinematically or like geo wise. I'm getting back into it. My buddy Owen, though, he's been riding like one of my bikes recently, so we've been getting his bike pretty dialed in. That's kind of what I guess I've been working on is getting his bike dialed in. I've also made some long levers for some Shimano levers. I don't know
Nice.
how I feel. uh, yeah, they're about 30% longer, so you get 30% more power for the same force, or the other way around, 30% less lever force for the same power.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
that thing, I'm pretty stoked on those. Like, I put some on his bike also. I was working on his bike like in the beginning, and I had the ones I was gonna put on my bike laying there, and he was running Saints, so I just threw them on and then gave him back the bike. So I think they're pretty sick. Like the
That's cool.
power is
Yeah.
pretty insane. uh, relative to stock. So it's a pretty big boost. But
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm on.
Sweet. Yeah, I wanted to touch on that. So Owen's racing that, across the country this year, and yeah, what's his plan? But yeah, it's cool that you got like a high level rider kind of
Yeah.
going at it.
So Owen lives like in my area. We were riding for I don't know maybe a year before now. Like we had met and then we kind of just started riding a bit. He used to ride for like Eminent. I don't know if you
Yep.
know Owen. Uh, But yeah, he used to ride for Eminent. He's been doing the BMEs and some other stuff, some other races like across the West. I think, yeah, he made it out to Tennessee at some point. But he wanted a bike also that like he could kind of dial in for what he was looking for, as well as I don't know what I can say. Uh, yeah, a bike I could fix. uh, he had been through a few different bikes like before riding mine. Like he rode an enduro, and then he also was on the Eminent, and there was always like something that he wanted changed, but he just wasn't able to.
hmm
But on my bike, I can get it fit for him almost. Like
Yeah.
whatever he needs changed, I can change it pretty easily, whether it be like kinematically or whatever. Basically, he needs changed. Like if he doesn't like how it's pedaling, I can change how much anti squat it has to like reduce how much bob he has, or if he wants more bob, like if he wants more grip on climbs, can lower the anti squat.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and kind of
so
going back to what you were saying, like you're on this version of the bike, you can with the adjustments, you can almost independently tune
yeah,
those numbers.
yeah. I can almost independently tune every kinematic.
That's
Well,
pretty
I
cool.
can independently tune every kinematic. Not every like the geo isn't completely independent. You can't
Yeah.
just go change the reach without like I theoretically could change the reach by lowering the bottom bracket, but then you got a slack head tube angle, so that isn't completely independent. But um, yeah, most stuff is pretty easy to change and get him dialed in for whatever he
Yeah.
needs to do.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool because yeah, like I said, I don't have a super good feel honestly for a lot of that
No,
stuff.
yeah,
So it would be, I mean, that would be the way to do it.
yeah. Do you have an
So
idea of like what kinematics you're looking for from all the bikes you've ridden?
Not really, honestly. I'd say of all the areas on bike setup stuff, I feel like I'm not super well versed on that. Um,
Yeah.
I've been more focused on the geometry front and kind of figuring that out. And I think I've got a pretty good idea of like what all that stuff does and just getting a bike balanced from a
Hmm.
geometry perspective. And then I think I understand what I want on my fork usually, whether I'm you know switching in between brands and stuff, but I do get kind of lost in the sauce on the rear end sometimes, like
Okay.
on on this geometron, especially dealing with that um, EXT shock. Like um, I'm kind of guessing
Okay.
at this point, and even with the dreadnought at times, I was like, yeah, I can tell you what I don't like about it, but I can't tell you exactly how I would want to fix it, or like I
Hmm.
couldn't I couldn't reliably say like, oh, this is gonna make it better. So
I guess what do you dislike? Or I don't know. We
yeah, the well on the dreadnought, it was all like it held up great and it felt good in the rough, but um, it was just I felt like it was harsh. Like the beginning
yeah.
of the travel, like was 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 rough. It wasn't forgiving, and I feel like it sacrificed traction there,
Hmm.
and sometimes it was hard to feel like exactly what where the rear end was in the travel. Um, so I think I just got to the point where I'm like, all right, the it's holding up, and I can ride it really fast, and I just had like a bit of sacrifice on the comfort traction front.
Yeah. So that's a pretty similar experience I had to like my first version. Like generally, yes, it was a decent riding bike, but yeah, it just felt harsh, like off the top. And then to get it to like hold up in the mid stroke, I had to run like less sag, but then it would ramp at the end, so it would never get
Yeah.
very deep in the travel. And then like yeah, my grip suffered, and it wasn't like the most supple suspension out there. Like yeah, it held up, but that was kind of what I struggled with that version. And then when I changed the leverage ratio, like the shape of the curve, I could run more sag, which allowed me to get more grip. But then I also had the mid stroke because it ramped earlier. Um, but yeah, that's a pretty similar experience to what I've had
Hmm.
riding. Like, yeah, I've ridden a dreadnought a little bit, but that's pretty similar to what I was going through with my first leverage ratio. That was kind of similar to theirs.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, but I think that was well said on how you described it.
Yeah. I played with like a few different shock tunes with Olin's. I think,
Yeah,
because I wasn't like it felt like it was almost like blowing through the first part of the travel
yeah,
at first, and then getting to a harsh spot. So I'm like, okay, maybe I need a stiffer shock tune. Um, and then I think that felt really good at Windrock where I was riding
okay,
because it there was a lot of big compressions.
yeah,
And I was like, all right, this is sweet. And then I took it back to California and was like, I maybe wanted my other shot now.
yeah,
So, um, but I think overall, I was able to deal with it because it was predictable for the most part,
yeah,
and I just learned how to ride it.
okay,
I felt really confident on it after a
for
certain amount
sure.
of time. I think the other thing maybe I have a better feel for because I ride flat pedals is
Hmm.
pedal kickback.
Okay,
Um, like that's one thing I've noticed because I was on pivots
yeah,
a lot beforehand, and that changed a lot through different generations of the bike. I feel like uh, like the Gen 2 Firebird was amazing to ride on flat pedals.
okay,
Like sat into the travel really nicely, and it felt like a magic carpet ride. And then Gen 3 Firebird was like almost unrideable on flat pedals.
okay,
So I don't have the kinematics, but that's something
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more sensitive with, and I feel like the Dreadnought was kind of interesting in that aspect because it didn't have a lot of pedal kickback, but also there was like like the suspension feel was harsh. So,
Hmm.
but generally, I was able to keep my feet on even through the rough stuff. So, I don't know, but
Yeah. Pedal kickback, I think, is like an interesting topic, just
yeah,
because you should be going faster than like what your chain is growing at, which
yeah,
I don't really understand why that would be the case. I think Vorsprung had a pretty good video. I don't know if you've
hmm
seen that on his pedal kickback, where
I,
he thinks it's almost like the weight of the chain that you can feel through your feet, as
hmm,
well as like the chain growth. And I think
yeah,
it is related to how much leverage maybe there is over the pedals. Like, even the World Cup guys seem to be running O chains and stuff on like high pivots and some
on high pivots, yeah.
that shouldn't have much pedal kickback. So, a little
Have,
unsure.
yeah, right. Like, have you messed with O-Chain at all? Yeah,
Have you?
I've got one, but I haven't ran it yet. So that'll go on a bike in the future.
Yeah.
uh, but I guess what's the big picture goal with the whole project? Is it really just to get a bike can that you like and enjoy riding and holds up?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, it definitely was kind of that. Like, I would honestly was surprised. Like, I made a bike that like rode decent and like held up reasonably well. I mean, there was like finicky little things that were annoying, but like over the generations, like it's been become pretty refined. Like it's the best riding bike I've ridden. Like there might be a bike out there that's better, but I because I'm able to tune everything to like what I want. There's nothing I really complain about, which I think is good. Like it does everything I need, and there's nothing like that bugs me or I'm like, oh, if only this, then I could go faster.
Yeah,
It's more my skill level and what I can do. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have any like long term plans. I want to get that linkage fork like dialed in.
yeah,
That's a
dude.
project I want. Uh, but I mean, I would make more bikes. Like I enjoy making the bikes, so like if someone wants one made, I'd be willing to make them one. Um, yeah, I think I probably have a few more bikes I'm gonna be building, like just for some random people I know,
Okay.
and get those dialed in. But the process of like refine, like the actual bike building process, I've refined quite a bit. So I have like a pretty good workflow on like what to do in order to get it done, and like have all my tolerances lined up and all my dimensions. So at the moment, like I don't have plans on going in production, not
Yeah.
lining anything up and saying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really keep racing. Uh,
Yeah, dude.
yeah, keep the bike going.
Totally.
Keep
And like I've never ridden a fully steel bike, so
yeah.
how in your opinion, like how does that affect the whole ride experience?
I'm not sure how much it changes. I guess it probably does. I haven't messed too much with the front angle stiffness, but I've messed with like the pivot stiffness and then also like the rear end stiffness. So my first bike, once again, was a little too flexy. I don't know if you scrolled way back on my Instagram, but in the beginning, yeah, it's just like a normal tube. It just is basically a normal tube chainstay, but that thing, I had some additions over like the months riding it, just trying to stiffen it up. Like after my initial one, I realized it was way too flexy. Like it, if you're looking like down the center line of the bike, it would kind of like wiggle this way in corners, which is not an ideal characteristic. I realized. So I stiffened that up a ton, like over when I was building it. Like I had like this spiderweb plate that would go in between the tubes, on the inside just to like make the whole rear end stiffer. I had to like eventually redo the chainstay just because it got out of hand. I kept making it, just kept adding material basically, and then I went and rebuilt like with a new chainstay, and that fixed my issues. I was too thin on diameter and too thin wall on that first chainstay, which was part of
Mhm.
it, as well as like the chainstay bridges weren't beefy enough, so those were flexing a ton. Um, but generally, I think like softer bikes perform better. Um, I'm just trying to think. So torsionally of the rear wheel, I think that is a good way for your rear wheel to flex. So if you're looking down the bike line again, like this direction, if your chainstay does twists in that direction, it's generally like a predictable feel, and it kind of just gets out of the way and like can generate traction, especially on like off cambers.
Yeah.
But if you have too much stiffness, or yeah, if it's too flexy or too stiff, I think it can get a little unpredictable on what it actually will do. Um, so I've messed around a little bit with like the chainstay bridges and as well as my pivot like hardware. I right now have a double bearing in my main pivot um, to like stiffen up it torsionally. Like so, I have two bearings in each pivot holder on each side just to get it to not rotate around that like my main pivot axle um, to stiffen it up. I mean, making a stiff single pivot or a steel single pivot isn't like the easiest job. I think most are
Yeah.
really flexy.
Yeah.
Like I think the Starlings I've heard are pretty flexy, and as well as some other single pivots out there are really a little excessive. I would say maybe flexier than most bikes on the market right now, but not
Mm.
too flexy because once
Yeah.
you get to a point, I think your bike just becomes a noodle in some corners, and you can feel your rear wheel just like tipping over.
Yeah.
I
It's
could
kind of
feel
a
that on the first one.
yeah. It's kind of a bummer if you go into a juicy corner and then your bike just twists up and you come out this other end like slower almost. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
But
weird feeling. It's like unpredictable almost because it like flexes first, and then you don't shroud or like skid at all, and then it like loads up, and then like it might release late, and then like you lose grip later in the corner,
like yeah, you
or
almost push the front as it's like releasing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I haven't like really I haven't had a bike in recent history that was super flexy like that, but the testing I did with the zip rear wheel is really similar.
Okay,
And
yeah.
an NB M9, which is like the stiffest wheel I've ever ridden, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
back to back in some really high G corners was yeah, pretty the difference was insane, honestly. Like
Could you
um,
tell a pretty big, maybe not in like the berm corners, but how did it feel in like regular riding outside of that?
the zips were insane on like rocky off camber. Like
Okay.
it was almost to the point where I mean those were like the two extreme ends of the spectrum. Like if you were riding like smooth berms, like I would literally come out of corners faster on the NBs because like you could just feel
Mm-hmm.
all your energy like coming fully out of the corner. Um, and then the zips would like I have a slow mo shot of the wheel literally folding into a taco. The tire would hit my seat stay and chain stay, but yeah, and like off camber route stuff, slower speed, the the zips were nuts. But like I raced them at Big Sky and
Yeah.
on some of the faster downhill tracks there, like even not in corners, like through I don't know, when you're going like 30 miles an hour through rock gardens and like having compressions, like the wheels are like loading and unloading in weird ways that makes it just like it's kind of a crapshoot. Like the bike is like all over the place. So
Okay.
it, yeah, it's like, oh, you would almost like want a different wheel set for a, you know, a one race or you know, a different riding spot. But I feel like it's way harder to do that with wheels. You just want something kind of middle of the road.
Yeah, for sure. It's difficult to like change your whole
Yeah,
tire and brake setup just to change the stiffness of your wheel.
yeah, and then I feel like all this gets to the point of like predictability too. Just like
Yeah.
having something, even if it's not the best everywhere, just like knowing what it's going to do. Um,
Hmm.
and that's what I got with the Envy because like I just chose to ride the Envy, and it
Yeah.
was insanely stiff and it was horrible on routes and stuff. But I knew it was going to slide. So,
Yeah.
um,
I think
but
Frameworks is going to be running those NV wheels this year, and I know Nico's always talking about consistency in like his bike.
yeah. Well, I know they got a new wheel set coming that they've been prototyping for a really, really long time, and everything I hear, I don't know. I'm really stoked because besides the stiffness of that M9, like I really dig their rim strip technology, um, and I know they're designing that wheel just with a lot of stiffness tuning in mind.
It'll be interesting to see if those new NV wheels are softer. I feel like I've always heard of the NV wheels just being so stiff for like
Yeah.
since I've got into mountain biking. They're like, oh, these wheels are the stiffest wheels out there. I was gonna say about like the consistency in a bike. I think some bikes anti-rise is too progressive. Um, like it would change from off the like at zero travel be like 125 and then go to zero basically. I think that can get make a bike feel pretty unpredictable on the brakes. I don't know what bike you would have ridden that has that,
Hmm.
but I've seen on the new Druid and the new Supernaut, they have a pretty extreme anti-rise curve.
Okay. And
Oh, I think
what?
the Intense M29 downhill bike used to have that.
Okay.
But depending on where you are, like going into a corner, and if you get on the brakes, sometimes you'll have support and sometimes your bike will squat. I think that can be a
Hmm.
big difference in change. That was one thing on the common self floating brake that we were trying to fix, is that has a pretty progressive anti-rise curve. So that was one thing that we were working on, and it he also rode like a Trek slash or sorry, Trek session, and that has a pretty linear one, and it can be a lot more predictable on the brakes compared to one like depending on which curve you're running.
Yeah, I guess the only reference point or input I would have on that is um, like I've been doing this series where I talk about some of my old bikes, and
Yeah.
two of my favorite old downhill bikes were like the 650B Scott Gambler and then
Mm-hmm.
the TR 500. So
Okay.
both linked single pivots, um,
Yeah.
and both objectively bad under braking, but
Yeah.
very predictably bad. And like,
That's
w-
fair. Yeah.
like both those bikes, I don't think were incredible in any sense, and probably at the high level, like Nico talked about this a lot, like probably didn't make good race bikes, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, for the very top level. But for me, where I was at, it was those bikes were so predictable. Like if you're not trying to like reach the upper levels of speed, like having brake jack just makes you have to be really intentful with your braking, and it kind of
Yeah.
adds this dynamic to your riding where you're like having to interact with the trail in a bit of a more intimate way because you're like, all right,
Yeah. Yeah.
light here, brake here, hop over this, and then so I kind of miss that honestly, and I feel like that's, you know, all these 6 bar bikes check way more boxes with being like way more balanced, but
Yeah.
um there's that certain like level of connection to the rear wheel when you just have like a single pivot.
Yeah, definitely. You can't be just dragging your brakes everywhere. You got to be very,
No.
yeah, you have to have a lot of intention on when you're braking, which might make you faster. Brake late, brake after the bumps or outside of them. Yeah, it's a good feedback training.
Yeah, I think it's yeah. If you can deal with it and get used to it, it's probably good for technique. But then taking that to a World Cup track where you know I don't know,
Or you can't.
it could be hard to deal with for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any plans on racing coming up, or are you going to be racing another season? Or
Not really. I think I'm taking a bit of a
yeah,
break on it for now.
okay,
I I do have an idea to try and race sea otter
okay,
uh on I don't know. I want to do like $1,000 budget challenge and just like buy something off a marketplace for $1,000 and go race it at Sea Otter and do
yeah,
like a little budget series because everything on the channel or everything I've ever done has been super high end and
right.
I don't know can I feel like it can probably make me seem like a bit of a snob but or that like I don't know I because yeah, bikes are fun no matter what. So,
Definitely.
it's like I want to show that you can go out on whatever and have a good time, and it doesn't really matter if your chain stays 4 mils off. Like, you can
I know.
still go ride your bike and have a good time, and probably go decently fast on it as
Yeah,
well.
for
So,
sure.
um, yeah, I guess one thing I wanted to touch on, like just for people's reference, like where did you end up on geometry on the bike you're riding?
Yeah, I'm running a 490 reach with 465 chainstay on my bike. I'm running full 29, 62.63.1, but it's a
Yeah.
63.
Okay.
It's pretty close, like in
Yeah.
130 head tube, so a decent amount of stack.
Nice.
That's kind of where I'm at. 81-degree C-tube angle. Uh, some people won't love that, but it's pretty nice for winching up the hills. I'm not gonna
Totally.
go ride on the road, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I used to have a pull Evo link with a reach of like 510, and it was I literally would just get stuck, like, and then I was just like a passenger. It felt like I don't know what reach you're running, but I think reaches can get too long.
Yeah.
At least for if you're trying to ride like dynamically. Like
Yeah.
if I'm not gonna move, yeah, long reach is great, but to be dynamic on the bike and not be a passenger, I think maybe a little bit shorter chain or shorter reach than what some of the new brands are coming out with. I know Canyon's large, I think is a 500 mil reach. I
Yeah.
was like, I'm 6'3" and I wouldn't want to ride a large.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. I think yeah, right now, I mean with the Geometron, exploring in that range. It's like 515 and
ooh,
yeah, and yeah, I think you nailed it. It's like it actually rides really good, but you're kind of just stuck in that position.
hmm,
And yeah, I'm able to get both wheels to grip. I'm able to slide the rear end around, and I feel confident in that position. But I don't know. I feel like it's fast, but yeah, it's just you're kind of just like you're relying like completely on the chassis for almost
yeah,
everything at that point. Like it's like you don't have a lot of arm travel or like much articulation with your body to do much. So as long as you're cool, just staying in that position and then carving corners and just being there, like it's cool and it works. But especially where I'm at with my riding right now is like I was riding with like some of the NorCal Fast Boys last weekend, and it's like really the only way to like enjoy this bike and to get the most out of it is just to go faster. And it's
uh-huh.
like I don't really want to go faster any faster right
Yeah.
now. So I'm just like kind of in this awkward zone where I'm still going like kind of uncomfortably fast, but like I don't want to push it, but like I don't know. So I'm kind of in like an awkward spot with that bike. I kind of
Yeah.
need to just like test out the last few things I want to learn with it, and then I'm on to the next one. I just built up that Druid V2, so
Okay. Yeah. I'm
yeah.
excited to see how that is. Should be sweet.
Yeah, I'm pumped. It'll be nice to move around on a bike again.
Yeah. What's the
a
reach
little a little more.
on that one?
475.
That's a big change.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's like where the kind of two camps are. It's like I think that big stuff works if you
Yeah.
just want to be kind of stuck in the bike, uh, and then, but if you want to ride more dynamically, there's kind of that other range to be in. So
Yeah.
um, try it all.
Uh, you've ridden, do you ride mainly in Santa Cruz or do you ride somewhere else generally?
uh,
Yes.
no, I've like I'm up, or recently I've spent the most time like kind of closer to Sacramento.
Okay.
So
Got it.
kind of like Auburn area, Tahoe. Uh,
Yeah.
so I ride Santa Cruz occasionally, but honestly, this last 2 years I haven't ridden all that much.
Okay.
in in the States, I did a decent amount of riding in New Zealand. So
Yeah, that looked sick.
yeah, it was awesome.
Cornet Peak looks insane. I would love to get
Yeah,
up there.
yeah, I would highly
Um,
recommend it.
so have you ridden jugs on your Geometron,
Yes,
Evan?
yes,
You know the one chicane section where
yes.
how well can you get through on the Geometron on that?
The
That
the like
seems
the triple corner, like the left, right, left
yes.
before the
Yeah.
jump,
Yeah.
pretty good, honestly.
Yeah?
Like I'm able
Okay.
to go full gas through there. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. I would
Um,
assume that would be a section where it almost
I feel
feels
like bouncing into the last one, I'm like a little afraid the front end's gonna like if I got a
yeah.
bad bounce in the right, there's like something in my head that thinks it's a possibility I could go over, but those corners have support, and I feel like I'm able to
Yeah.
just like bang, 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 go through them. And I mean, that's where I
Perfect.
did the test with the stem,
Oh yeah.
the old raised and reversed,
Yeah,
and
I know him.
um,
Yeah, me and Bronson see each other at like quite a few of the races around
oh,
SoCal.
that's
So
cool. That's cool.
yeah, he's a nice guy.
Um, yeah, I think that like that made that bike feel better through there for sure. Um,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I will say like I'm surprised what I get through well on a bike
Hmm.
that big. It's like
Okay.
it's not as much of a hindrance as I think I initially thought.
Okay.
So
When I was on my pole, I think I kind of felt the same thing. Like getting through some of the tighter stuff wasn't as bad as it I would expect, but if I like came up to like a slow drop, I don't know how you feel. Like getting the front wheel up and not having the rear end like yeah, getting the front end up enough to get off the drop was what
Yeah,
was the scariest thing to me. I don't know if
totally. I
you
haven't
feel
ridden a
that.
lot of slow drops on it, but
Yeah,
I can picture exactly what you're saying. Um,
yeah.
because I think that's maybe the toughest thing to get along with the geometron is like your timing becomes really weird,
Okay.
and just very very long. Like it takes
Yeah.
a lot of time to load the bike, and I think that's what I miss a lot, honestly, is like
Okay.
doing a quick little hop up here. Like if you're doing like a high line, it's like a big long setup.
Hmm.
It's not just like bam, like up, drop in. It's so I don't know. Like I think that's good for racing because it almost like mandatory makes you arc your corners, or it doesn't encourage you to operate like outside of that riding style.
Yeah. You just got to bring those lines to the the smaller bike, and then you'll
Yeah,
be
exactly.
flying. Yeah.
Exactly. So
So
yeah, I'm excited. But yeah, dude, well, we should stay in touch on getting
yeah.
a bike. I mean, after talking to you, I'm more excited about it. So
Okay. Cool.
I just have to financially recover from the e-bike I just bought.
Oh,
So
nice.
we'll see where I'm at. But
For sure.
yeah, I want to work through the Druid, and then yeah, maybe come summertime, I'll be hitting you up because yeah,
Okay.
I do want to learn like more about the kinematics, and I think that's
Yeah.
super. That's something I don't add to my bike reviews or conversations. That I think it's a huge part of the picture. So I would be definitely keen to learn more about that.
Yeah, for sure. It's super interesting to like feel the changes, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this does this, and try to figure out how to make your bike fit what you want. Like everyone rides a
Mhm.
little different and prefers different things, so it's an
Totally.
interesting feeling. So yeah,
Um,
it was great talking to you.
yeah. Thanks for coming on. And yeah, thanks for fitting me in before work. What's your day
Yeah, no
job?
problem. I work at TaylorMade, uh, so I work mainly on putters and wedges for like R&D,
Sick.
trying to make them better. So that's what my day to day is.
So you're designing clubs?
Yeah, yeah.
Or
I mainly work in like the putters and wedges department, but
nice.
yeah, trying to make. I mean, I think when you think of like how to make a putter better, uh, you're like, oh, it's just this piece of metal on the end of a stick, but there's quite a bit that goes into it to get like the best performance you can. It's definitely you're going for like the details, but to
Hmm.
get like optimal performance for like launch and spin of a putter, you don't think your putter launches like at a certain angle, but like being able to get your ball rolling properly, you gotta work through the details. So
Sweet. Well, we'll have to do another podcast on putter
on putters,
performance.
yeah, that'll be the next one.
Sweet. Well, looking forward to
Yeah,
it, dude. Yeah, thanks for chatting. And
yeah,
yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime.
yeah. Thank you. See ya.
All right. See ya.